everybody. Welcome everybody. It's John, the Net Guy, and we're doing another live PC build, this time on Amazon Live. If you're watching on any of the other services that might be out there, if you take a look in the description, there's a link to my Amazon Live for this, as well as up there. So it's going to be scrolling around here as we're doing this today. I would recommend, if you have the Amazon app on your phone or you're on a desktop computer, go ahead and hit that amazon.com/shop/the-net-guy, and you can join interactive with me. I've got my cell phone back here. They require you to use that to communicate with people. And I'm going to communicate with you back and forth. This is interactive. We're going to do a live PC build. I'm going to talk to you about hardware today. We're going to talk to you about computers, gaming computers, and some expensive hardware. This isn't cheap. So this is the broke my budget PC build. I was looking at doing like a $500 machine, and honestly, I flip those in the end. I don't keep those. That's not a machine that I use every single day. You know, I've got some machines like that, laptops for the kids. And then I thought, okay, maybe I'll do a 750 or a 1000. But even then, you're getting a used GPU off Craigslist or somewhere else, and you're slapping in a machine, buying a few other parts. And, you know, by the time you've done all that, you know, you've got a bunch of used parts in a machine, and sometimes you made sacrifices. Sometimes you said, okay, I'll go with the cheaper motherboard with 2 DIMM slots or something. And you don't have exactly what you want. So I said, why not just build a machine that I want? This is my gaming machine. And I saw this NZXT case, and it has USB Type-C on it. It has all these really cool features, plenty of airflow. And I thought, man, I could build something really cool in this. And I reached out to my friends. I need to talk about them, actually, over at Enermax. And I said, hey, what do you guys got that can cool an AMD 5800X, which is a very hot CPU? And Enermax came back and said, I've got the perfect 360 millimeter RAD, and we can send it out to you. So I'm just thanking Enermax for sending this out on this build. That's one of the product sponsors here. And they've sent me out this cooler. We're going to put that in. I'm very, very excited. I'm just going to check the chat real quick. Hey, Isaiah, awesome, and Santa Fe, welcome to the live chat. Again, I'm watching you. If you have not yet already, again, up in that corner on desktop, there's a follow button. Go ahead and hit that for me. Then you'll know every single time I go live. And if you're on mobile, I think it's somewhere down there. But you can chat with me. I'm going to take some breaks here intermittently to take a look at the chat like I just did. And just want to get going with what we've got. Now, something cool about the Amazon Live here is that I can bring these products up and show the ones that we're featuring. We've got a moth in the studio today. So I'm going to bring up a browser here, and you're going to get to see with me what I'm looking at. So the first things first is, what kind of motherboard are we going to use today? So this is a fairly stout machine. It's going to have a PCIe Gen 4 NVMe SSD. Caught that guy. It's going to have a bunch of really high-speed RAM, which is great for Ryzen chips. You want that. It's going to have a high-speed chip. It's going to have all that. So what better motherboard for a break-my-budget build than an X570, right? You could go B550 on this as well. You could do some other ones. But this X570 from ASRock, one of my favorite boards right now. It just has everything. You know, you're not sacrificing in any way. You've got 4 DIMM slots. You've got armor plating. You've got 3 NVMe slots on it as well. It's not a cheap board. You know, right now, I can tell you the price on it on Amazon is $321.49. Exactly. So that's what it costs for this board right now. Excellent board. It has Wi-Fi 6 built into it, and it has an I/O plate built into it. So lots of things that are going to make building easier. You're not going to have extra components. And the thing I love about the NVMe slots on here is you're not going to have another hard drive and SATA cables sticking out. But if you wanted to, it's got a gang of them over here. I can count 8 from the back side on this motherboard. So that's one of the components that we're going to use. I'm just going to show you a couple more as I talk to the chat. Hey, Pinky Tech, welcome to the Amazon chat. And we're going to go here to the next item, which is the chip. Now, this is one a few of my friends know that I have and I love. Let me pull the box up for you guys here. So this chip right here, it is the Ryzen 7 5800X. It is a fast chip. It is an 8-core, 16-thread chip. Now, you can go higher and you can go lower, and there's trade-offs and advantages to that. You can save a little bit of money. A 5600X would be a great chip. 5950 would also be a very fast chip for a build like this. So, hey, awesome Amazon customer that started following. You guys are following the thing there. I love that. I will see you in the next stream as well. Thank you very much. So this is a great chip overall. It does get hot. So nice thing about these, and you know, I don't want to get too long-winded into buying chips and what you should look for. You know, Intel and AMD have really been going back and forth on the performance. AMD's been a little bit ahead lately, you know, performance per dollar. But in this chip, it has Precision Boost Overdrive, PBO, and a lot of these other features that are going to make it basically overclock itself. It's basically going to run as fast as it can thermally, and that's where having a 360 millimeter radiator cooler is going to make this a lot easier to cool down and keep cool, and the clock speed just keep going up. So it's clocked at 4.7 right now. So awesome, and thanks for the follow there, Pinky Tech. Okay, we're going to go through just a couple more parts, and then I'm going to talk about the build, and we're going to get through the build process because nobody likes just looking at stuff. Another cool thing I'm doing for the first time ever in this build is a Gen 4 PCIe NVMe. Now, I can switch over to camera 2, hopefully, and you guys can see this a little bit better. This is the product right there. It's a Western Digital, and I shouldn't cover up the logo. I know better than that. Western Digital Black. Now, I have the 750 myself, and the 750 is a good NVMe drive. It's good to 3,000, 3,300 megabytes a second transfer rate. The SN 750 or 850 blows it away. We're going to do some quick crystal mark disk bench on here, and you guys are going to be amazed. I've never seen something move data so fast. Now, I couldn't afford the 1 terabyte in my build. I didn't tell my wife I was buying all these parts for this, so hopefully everything funds itself in the end. But I just wanted to say that, you know, this drive at a 500 megabyte or gigabyte is plenty for a boot drive with a couple games on it, which is what I want. I also tossed in the Crucial P5. Now, the Crucial P5 is a really, really similar. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this for you here, down here. The Crucial P5 is also going in this, and this is kind of my game and my data drive. So I'm going to throw some games on here when I'm not using them, and then I can move them around. You can also go with some other, you go with a spinning hard drive if you really wanted to. This case has some options of kind of where to hide those. You can get a 4 terabyte and 8 terabyte SATA drive for, you know, throwing your game library in. Then you don't have to keep re-downloading. And welcome, Parker. Awesome, Isaiah. Let's see. Is it okay if I can ask some questions? Absolutely. Isaiah, you go for it. I'm going to keep looking down here, and I'm going to see if the products aren't about what we have and it's just computer general. Let's talk about those. I don't mind doing that. There's no rules that says we can't. And if I need to pull it up on Amazon, we can do that as well. So I'm going to talk about that. The next one, again, is the GPU that I have. That's the one that's handy. That's the RX6800. It's not the XT. So it's somewhere right around a 3070, 3080 in the RTX variety. So, you know, that's a good performing card. When we talk about playing Warzone, it's going to do ray tracing. It's going to do all the really cool stuff as well. It's not going to be the same frame rates, but you'll see the frame rates we get out of this are darn respectable in the end when we look at it. So that's the GPU. If you can get yourself a GPU right now, wherever you get it from, get it. You know, I don't want to be, you know, beholden to one GPU or another. You know, it's a crunch right now. We are starting to see more of these starting to become available. Looks like this one, there's one out there for 1,800 in the market, maybe one for 1,600. I would buy this when it gets more reasonable, closer to MSRP. And then this NZXT case. Now, I did a build the other day in an NZXT H710 Elite. Now, it's a smaller version of this case. It has some of the same cable management. It has the NZXT cam. What I didn't show in that build was the cool RGB that the NZXT cam controller gives you. Now, this has the same cam controller that comes with it. Also comes with 3 fans up front, and a lot of people give NZXT a really hard time about airflow. But honestly, the amount of airflow that you have going down the sides of this and over through the top, you're going to get plenty of air in and out. It's got 3 120 millimeters up front and a 140 in the back on there. We're also going to, again, tuck that radiator in up top if we can get it to fit. It says it'll fit. I have not put it in here yet, so this is going to be live television here, and we're going to see how that fits in this case. So great case. I'm excited to build it just because it's super easy to build in. I like things that go together well. And I've hinted at it a few times, and again, Enermax sent me this one out to install, the Enermax Liquimax 3 360 millimeter addressable RGB. It's got a controller. If your computer doesn't have a controller, let me go back to full here for you guys. So if your computer does not have addressable RGB and you're not lucky enough to have an NZXT case with NZXT Cam as a controller alternative, you can actually use the controller that they included in this. So it has a very small addressable controller that came with it, which I really appreciate. So that was kind of a cool feature as well. And then lastly, we have on here the power supply. Now this is an interesting choice in a power supply. I've got a V850 gold power supply from the Cooler Master company. Now, why would I have a gold ITX SFX power supply in a build here? One simple reason: I got a great deal on it, a screaming deal. Now today, this one's for $144.99 on Amazon. This power supply would go in a mini ITX build if that's what you were doing, and 850 in the size that is literally right here. That's this little thing right here, is huge. Now the other cool thing about it, not only is it's got the small form factor, it does have an adapter to fit into a standard size case. So when I was looking around at the parts that I might want to install here and see what was available, I saw this power supply. I thought, man, that's going to be great for not only airflow, it's got a intelligent fan in it, so it doesn't come on. There's a sticker on there that warns you that it doesn't come on until the machine actually needs cooling. So that was kind of cool. It's also a fully modular power supply. And what I mean by that, again, all of these cables on the end here. So you can see where the cables plug in for this, for the motherboard. They plug in individually. So I actually have one extra cable here. I'm just going to unplug it so you can see how that works. And so this is a standard SATA drive connector. And if you don't have any standard SATA power needs, you get rid of this. So I'm not going to throw it because I'll probably hit something important. But you can get rid of this one and you can make your installation even that much cleaner. Now I have a couple other tricks up my sleeve. I didn't put them in the menu for today, just in case we don't get to there. I did have some cable extensions. So if we're building a white PC, this power supply has black cables, are okay. But I got some really nice cable extensions with guides, which I think will look pretty cool, some combs in there. And we'll see if I get around to doing that. If we have time, I'll do that here. And then also, this case allows you to vertically mount your GPU. Now the jury's out on whether that's possible or not with the GPU I selected. It's 2.7 slots wide, and where I'm seeing I've got basically 3, so I might have some airflow issues with the glass. But just in case that is possible, I did grab a thermal take PCIe riser, and we can try that if we get that second build. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me here. We're going to get started on building this machine. Isaiah, I'm going to get to your question in just one second. If you do have questions, feel free to submit them in the Amazon chat. If you just joined us here at Amazon, up there's a follow button if you'd like to follow and know when I'm coming online and doing another live stream. I do want to share a couple things with you before we move on. Next week, maybe the week after, I'm going to be doing a collection of doorbells. So this is the Anker Eufy doorbell. This is the Heim Vision. I have a J9 over there. I have a Wise, and I have the Amcrest. Now, I've used all of these, and I'm going to be telling you what I think of them. We might go through some product demos, and you can see what the apps look like on them. But if you wanted to follow the channel, that's awesome. Hey, Isaiah, thank you so much for following. I appreciate that. That's one thing that's coming up. Now, I said, I don't know if that's next week. And the reason is, I also have a webcam shootout. So, we've got the Anker PowerComp C300. I spend 4 to 6 hours a day on a webcam right now in my day job. So I wanted to get some webcam options for you guys. So we've got the Anker. I also have a Logitech Brio 4K, so $150-ish range webcam. I also have the Avermedia. Now this one is a basic streamer webcam, full HD webcam. Don't know if we've got a model number on this one. Not jumping out at me. The live streamer webcam is what it's called. I think it's the 313, but don't quote me on that. but I'll have this and more to show you. I've got a bunch of webcams that have come in that I wanted to show you, and they're all available as well on Amazon. So those will be in the next couple weeks. If Wednesday works, I'll try to do the Wednesday live streams, and we're going to have some fun. So it's not just going to be PC building. We'll get into some other tech as well. I'm going to make a little bit of room here because we got a lot of boxes of things, and I've started a little bit of the assembly process to help you guys out here. For example, this is the 360 millimeter radiator. I got the fans oriented in the right direction where I want them. Just started getting the basics down. So this will give us a little bit of time back when we go to do the assembly. But I'm going to move the things that we're not using out of the way here. So just quick check of the chat. PC to play games, but it's much lower performance. I would like to know the products I should buy to upgrade because I'm not good at PC building. Awesome. That's a long-term question. Now, I should also remind you guys, I am available on other systems. If you are watching right now on YouTube or Facebook or another system, highly recommend you jump over to the Amazon, use the Amazon chat. That's a kind of an involved question. This is a very good budget build. Well, broke your budget build. If money wasn't an option. There are definitely some channels out there that maybe do budget builds and build guides and stuff, especially for Intel. I don't do a lot of Intel ones, so you may want to consider doing some searching on that. If you do want to look at some of my other lives, I've gone over some budget builds as well. So, if that's something that interests you, I could definitely do that. And I definitely appreciate you jumping on here. We're going to do this build today, and it's going to be super fast. If you're just joining, this is the Broke My Budget build. Machine's about $3,000. So if you wanted to follow along, you're going to be able to build it with us, if you bought these same parts. But it's going to be a great machine. I'm going to, like I said, put a few of these boxes out of the way so we can get building. One of the things that I really, really like to do, we'll take a break here for a second. When you get your new PC, and this is a common thing that I tell people, when you get your new PC, don't get everything built in the case. And honestly, don't take everything out of the box and scatter it around your bedroom, your floor, whatever, gets static all over it. Try to avoid that. First thing I recommend is just to make sure that you guys have everything that that you bought, and that you got the right parts, that the parts came in, that they're what they say they are. They're not missing anything. So that's the first checklist item that I do. And second, a pro tip, your motherboard box is non-conductive and it's a perfect work surface. Now, I'm not using a motherboard box because I stole this from my wife. Don't tell her that either. But this is a craft paper box. I was looking for one to see if I could put it in the live just to find it. They're 13, craft paper for scrapbooking is 13 by 13. Most motherboards are 9.6. At maybe 12 on the high end. So I actually used her craft box to hold the motherboards and RAM when I'm not using them. And I'll show you. I literally got to move a few things around here. Whenever I get extra motherboards, I commandeered almost all of hers. I put them in these plastic cases. It's static proof. I can put other components in there if I want to wrap it and be real careful with them. But yeah, it works out really, really good to hold motherboards. So if you don't have your original motherboard box, use these. And if you have these, you can put all the parts on them just like that. But a motherboard box works in a pinch. Awesome. Thanks for helping out there, Pinky, in the chat. Isaiah, your card is borderline. That's going to need to get a little bit of an upgrade possibly, but hopefully in wherever you're at, you can find some stuff. Right now, the GPU market is really tight. So as I was saying, one of the things I really, really like to do is use the motherboard box flat, if you can, put your motherboard on it, and start to build out and break out your parts on the box itself. Now today, I'm going to bring the other camera over here so you can see this. Get you over onto camera 2. This is my little build setup here, and this is just a simple plastic box that I had, and I've connected the minimum amounts of parts needed. Now, I had an extra CPU fan. The 5800X, I should point that out, the 5800X is not going to come with one of the stock AMD fans. This is the Wraith, I think, cooler. It's not going to come with that because it has such a high load that's not going to keep it cool. Actually, if you're going to do benchmark tests, this is probably not the best CPU cooler for it. But for benchmark testing, you almost never have trouble with CPU coolers. So that's one of the things I use. I also put the memory in here. Now, just a quick beginner tip here before we get going. Switch over so you can see the RAM. Most motherboards, and I'm not going to be able to show you this when it gets in there, have different slots. They're going to have A1, B1, A2, and then B2. And those different slots mean something. A lot of times they'll even have an asterisk. And what that's telling you is that to get your dual channel memory, to get your best performance out of the motherboard, to squeak that out of there, you're going to want to help the motherboard to do the dual rank, dual channel thing. You're going to have to put those in specific slots. Rule of thumb is if you do the second slot in from the CPU and the last one, if there's a 4 slots, that you should be able to get that higher speed as well on there. So that's a couple other just quick building tips. Now, like I said, when I assembled this, I've just taken a few components out here, and we're going to plug them all back in when we go to put them in this case. So I'm going to show you how we took them all apart and put them back in. I put them all together in here with just the minimal I needed. Now, the 5800X from AMD does not have a dedicated GPU, or an APU as they call it in the Ryzen world. So I need to put a GPU in here. So that's the only reason my GPU is plugged in right now, is because I had to do that GPU install. Now I'm going to move some of this out of the way. We'll come back to it. I just want to prove to you why this is important and show you something cool at the same time. So this is the machine that's built. One of the very nice things, and you can kind of see them over here, is a power and a reset button. When you get to this level of a motherboard, they don't mess around. You're going to get everything. So in this case, that's a power and a reset for diagnostic purposes. And as I power this machine on, you'll notice the LEDs go through a process. And those LEDs, and it's got some diagnostic info, are going to tell you what's going on with the machine. Now, what's cool about it? Machine is already booting up right now. So I'm going to get myself back in there, and bam, that's how fast that machine booted. From when I hit power to, well, I'm in the Pacific time zone here, so it's 4:13. You can see how fast that machine booted up. And maybe if I hit power, will it go through the shutdown? Yeah, so it went through the shutdown process there, and it turned itself back off. So from a diagnostic perspective, it's super duper cool to have those diagnostic buttons on the motherboard. And the X570 from ASRock, the Tai Chi model, has that, which is pretty slick. So I use a standard Windows install. I did not link to it on the Amazon live stream, sorry. But if you want to do this yourself, what I recommend, and you can, if you have a Windows PC, you can do this with the media creation tool. So Windows 10 install, and it's just a USB key from SanDisk, and I boot off of that. And so I boot off of that, and I get going, and I get the machine, just the base level installed. Maybe I'll do some BIOS updates if I need to, just to make sure everything's working. And that's the first step that I do before I put everything in the big case. So that said, we know that the machine worked. Knock on press board. If I put it together and it doesn't post, and it's happened before, we know what happened. It was something in the assembly process, so I appreciate it. I'm going to unplug the power supply here and put that down for a sec. And then I'm going to look at these cables that I was telling you about here. I'm going to go back over to view number 2 here. So I'm going to unplug these cables. These are going to have to get plugged back in when I put everything together. Sometimes these modulars are great, but sometimes it's nice to get your memory installed and everything installed before you need it. Because when you put it up there inside the case, let me show you this. This is that power supply I was telling you about, and helps if you can read it upside down, straight up. So those are the different pins. You can't mess them up. They're different sizes, all of them, which I appreciate. And so that's that Corsair SFX 850. So if you want to assemble with this power supply, the nice thing is that modular means you don't have to have any cables you don't need. So coming back out here, you know, I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 power supply cables right now. Maybe no more. If I have to power the NZXT controller, maybe I will use a 4th. I'll use the SATA one. Just real careful when you're dealing with these motherboards. These GPUs here, as well. So when you're dealing with these motherboards, these GPUs have a release button on them. I'm going to show you that. So, and it's going to be hard to see, but behind the processor, they have this little release that you're going to need to push down while you're doing it. So I'm not going to try to get you guys seasick here looking on that camera. I'm just going to unplug the power cables to my GPU, and I'm going to put my cable somewhere safe. But you're going to, when you unplug this, and there's my video output, I'm going to save that right over here on the mic. So when I do that video output here, take my GPU out. You need to push down on this. I'm going to go back so you can see that. You need to push down on this release clip to get your GPU out. Otherwise, you could damage the slot. Now, this is the ASRock X570 we were talking about. And the nice feature of this motherboard, you've got steel reinforced slots. There's 3 of the PCI Express 16X slots there. It also has this tray that we're going to take off. So this large heatsink tray cools off everything, especially those high-speed NVMe drives we were talking about. So I'm going to just go ahead and take these out. Simple screws here. Now I'm not moving around much. I'm actually on a rubber mat right now. I don't use static bands generally when I'm working. Some people swear by them and do. You're up to do whatever you want. I would just highly recommend you don't move around a ton while you're doing this. Just want to take this off because I want to be open and transparent with y'all. Now, the NVMe drive is cooled by the bottom of this. So you can see this heatsink strip here, and it's been pushed down, and it's retained actually as well. Now, I've got the Crucial P5. I wasn't kidding. That's a Crucial P5, and that is the SN850 there. Now, I wish I could keep tapping these on Amazon so you could see them real time, but I just wanted to show you those are the drives that are actually in here. So that, 3-second boot up time that you saw, that was that drive. And I'm going to realign this. Try to get it to go back down for us. That is the one drawback with this, I would say, among different motherboards, is that this board has to be, to get to your hard drives, you have to take this heatsink off. So if you've got a big GPU like I do, you have to take all these out, and that can be kind of a pain. So I just want to point that out if you're somebody that likes to trade hardware all the time, and I have been guilty of that in the past, then you're going to want to look at that as maybe something that's a drawback, is that you may be having to do that occasionally, take that plate off, and you have to take your GPU out. I'm going to take a quick look at the chat. A quick reminder for everybody here. The NetGuy show here on Amazon Live. If you haven't visited my Amazon store, check up there. The URL's going by. It's amazon.com/shop/thenetguy. The link is in the description if you're on any one of those other services that this might be multicast on. Definitely go join me on Amazon in my Amazon shop. Make sure when you're there that you do follow. Follow button is here on desktop, there on mobile. I promise it'll get old after a while. But we'll go through here. I do want to talk about the motherboard. So that's the first item up. That's the board that we were looking at here as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about this memory now. So if you're on Amazon, I just pulled up the memory as the featured product right now. So you can see that. And that's this memory right over here. I'm going to switch over to this view so you can see it. So you can actually fit up to 4 memory sticks in this thing. This is the Trident Z Neo. It is an RGB RAM with built-in heat sinks. Now I'm going to pull this out so you guys can see what the box looks like. Just like that. Now, if you're a super big-time overclocker, don't look at what I'm doing right now, because a lot of people don't like the 4 DIMMs for overclocking. You got to get some really good RAM, super high quality match sets, that kind of stuff. There's some issues, potential issues with using more RAM for overclocking. Now, the RAM's only going to fit in one way. There is actually one side that is shorter than the other. You can see here, hopefully. Now, I'm just looking at the other RAM and the way that it's oriented. Like I said, sometimes with these big coolers and other stuff in the way, if you've got a radiator coming in up top, my other case is so short I can't reach these top pins once I have the radiator installed. So I would highly recommend installing your RAM prior to putting it all in the case. Now, this side is fixed on here on the X570 motherboard that we have today from ASRock. So you put it in at an angle, engage, and have this clip open on the side and just push down. And it should lock in if you've got everything right. Okay, heard a click. I got positive engagement on all of those little clips right there. And now this is RGB RAM. It's 3600 mega transfers. That's for you, Craft Computing. It's a whole long thing about mega transfers versus megahertz. You'll see it listed as megahertz sometimes. Once you do the double data rate and the math, it performs like it, but it's actually clocked much lower. So we'll talk about that later. But so that's the memory installed in this thing. I do need to remove the temporary CPU cooler that I installed. These are very noisy brackets. This is an AMD stock cooler that I just had laying around, and I used it temporarily. I keep my network cable from falling off there. So I'm going to take this cooler off because we're going to put a much better cooling solution on here. And I just wanted to ask, what do you guys use for CPUs right now? So if you're looking at doing an upgrade, what kind of CPU are you running right now? Are you running an Intel? Are you running an AMD? Is it a Ryzen? Hopefully not a Threadripper. It'll make me feel bad. Let me know what you have in the chat there on Amazon, and I'd love to see what you got going on there. I'm going to use my larger screwdriver on this one, I think. Apparently He-Man put this one down. So there we go. That is the old fan release. Now, because we're putting a different cooler on here, I need to make sure we're doing one thing right. There is usually on these motherboards a pump header and a fan header. So I think we've got those all. Now, what I recommend, so you don't yank the CPU out, I like to work it a little side to side and then tilt. And we got lucky that time. The CPU did not pop off. There's some thermal paste in there as well. So I'm going to get one thing that I did not have last live stream, which is a paper towel. So I learned my lesson, and we're going to just clean off some of the extra CPU paste. And you can see I was not lying. There is the Ryzen CPU right there. Now, putting CPU paste on is in itself a art form and also a theological debate, which I will not be having today. So we'll save that one for later, but just know that there's a lot. Oh, awesome. Okay, so you got the same chip, Santa Fe. Right on, man. That's very cool. Yeah, this is a good chip. This is one of my favorites for gaming. I'm going to remove, get back out here. I'm going to remove this from the CPU fan header. Now, I'm looking at here, and like I was telling you, this one over here says CPU fan 2/WP for water pump. So just be real careful that if you have a motherboard like this that has a separate pump, and then there's a chassis fan one back here. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's going to be really tight, but this guy back here has been labeled chassis/WP. So these are telling you which ones they want the water pumps in. And that's oftentimes really just about getting the cooling set up right so that it's not, lowering your speeds on a water pump. You don't generally want to run your water pumps as low as you do on your CPU fans, because just water circulating can actually do a better job cooling. So do that. I'll put a couple things out of the way here, get cleaned up again for you. So then only one person telling me what kind of CPU they have. Hopefully, if you're on the chat, you guys can chime in there. Let me know what kind of CPU you guys are running. Are you running Intel, AMD, Ryzen, or similar? And I'm going to take this. This is the way I like to have a board set up. I actually like to have the cooler on there if I can do it when I put it in there, if there's room to get around to get to the the slots on there. But I'm going to do it this way just for show so we can see this. But this is the fully loaded motherboard. This is the I/O shield I want to tell you about real quick on here. So we're going to go back to the ASRock on there on the Amazon. So if you want USB, this has got USB. It's got a ton of USB ports. It's got, like I said, the Wi-Fi 6 with the antennas and the cables there. I didn't bring those out of the box yet, but it's got that. Got some other CPU and optical audio, flashback BIOS capabilities, all that kind of capability that you want there, as well as a USB-C on the back. So ultimate fast capability there as well on this motherboard. So definitely a solid board. This thing, I'm got to be a weightlifter, but it weighs a ton. It's got a large metal plate on the back, a large metal shield. So that's over here. And then this is the standard AMD plate. Honestly, I have not looked in through the instructions. We're going to do that to see if we're going to need that plate. And we'll go to the next step here. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way, make some room. If you guys just joined, we're doing the I broke my budget PC build. This is about $3,000 PC build. Don't tell my wife. It is an AMD build. Very fast computer. I use this one, and I would love to use this for video editing and doing some things like that. It's going in this case. Now, this is the NZXT case. There's some things I need to tell you about it. It's the let me get this over here so I can bring it up on your screens. If you're following on the Amazon, which I recommend, let me get that up there. Okay, so if you're following on the Amazon up there, you can see that I've just highlighted the product in the carousel. If you click that, it'll bring right up the product page. But love this case. This is, essentially the top of the line on the NZXTs. Their Elite series and the I series. Couple things about it. It does have a retention here, and it's a captive retention for this large tempered glass. So you can see there's a large tempered glass side there. Don't let me break that. That would be the curse of the demo. So that's the tempered glass that you have covering the side. There are 3 120 millimeter fans up front. There are 1 in the rear, and there's room up here for 360 millimeter AIO radiator, which is what we're going to do today. So this case is going to be fully loaded with fans. We're going to have lots of airflow in it. Another thing that they don't generally show easily, but I thought it was so cool. If you're kind of a hardware hacker, one button. I know, it was fast, I'll do it again. One button. You literally push this button and the side comes off. So again, they're thinking ahead, making things super easy like that. And here you go. We've got all of our assembly equipment here. I did not take these out, thank goodness. And then we got our screw kits, controller info, and all that is in there. But this is a builder's case if there ever was a builder's case. I love these very forward-thinking cases. This isn't as deep, I don't think. It's at least 25 millimeters deep on the back, so you got plenty of cable running room. They've got molded channels everywhere. All of the edges are burled or turned over, right? So you're not going to cut yourself. It's got cable guides, and it actually has some things that we'll talk about, these retention clips everywhere holding extra panels on. I don't know the exact proper way to take those panels off yet, to be honest, but we're going to figure it out. It does have Velcro cable management. So you run the Velcro across, through, and down, and you can tighten your large cable looms back there. And then it does have the standard front I/O, but it's got some tricks here. So let's see if I can show these off to you guys in the other view. Okay. Swap here, and we're going to do camera 2. So just real quick, what I did here is I switched over to this camera. I want to show you the I/O options here. Now, if you built PCs a lot before, you know what that is. That's your HD audio there. So it's got the little pins there that go to your motherboard, obviously. So it's going to do that front panel audio with that. This one, another front panel USB connector. And I believe that's where the cam controller, is going to get its signal as well. Let's see if we've got that on here. That's the USB 2. So this is for the cam right here. And the NZXT cam, the cool thing about that is if your motherboard is old and maybe you don't have enough money to upgrade your motherboard, but you want a new case, you can plug this thing in and run all of the RGB and all of the fan curves and all that really cool stuff right off of it. And so it says must, even though you think you may not need to use that, must connect to motherboard. So they want you to connect that. It's a little pinched there because that runs the NZXT cam software. And then this here is a USB Type-C motherboard header. And so this is for that Type-C slot that it's going to have up front. And I also I poked in there and saw a standard USB. So it has 2 of the USB 3 front-mounted ports as well. So just a plethora of ports on this thing. I don't know if you could really want anything more in a case. So let me know in the chat. What do you think? Are these kind of cool features? Are these things that you would use? Is a white PC in the realm of possibilities for you? Is that something you would look at doing? I'm going to have to use a tool here to do a little bit of prying, and I'll show you why. So throwing a radiator in this thing, it has these cable management guides and shields. This little I/O shield that they include here is super popular. It's kind of a trademark NZXT 500 series. You'll see that just now that you look at machines, you'll see that pop out all the time. It is very, very popular. You can see it a mile away. It covers the escape of your cables. So if you have cables that are right next to the motherboard, they can go in and plug right into the motherboard and you don't see a bunch of extra cabling sitting around, which is kind of cool. That said, it can be tight to work in sometimes. There's not a lot of room for like a traditional front-mounted radiator. You can front mount, I guess, but they tuck the radiator up top here. And there's a lot of these little push-button clips. And I had to use a little pry tool to help me. So what I'm doing is I'm just prying up a little bit on this top panel. So I'm separating it right at the seam there. And now these clips are just popping. They're plastic retention clips. You can hear that. This is probably the most difficult thing, but I don't think you're going to be up in here very often. Okay. Freedom. Like William Wallace is it? So there's the I/O that you can see up top. So you got your power button is disconnected, but you have your 2 USBs, USB-C, and a combination audio jack. Now, if you have headsets and not combination, it has a splitter usually that comes with it. So I'm going to take this piece out of the way. And we're going to talk about what's up here. Hopefully my Skycam can show you this here. Okay, NZXT case. I got to bring that up. There we go. So this is the NZXT H710. Now I've flipped this over because I think that's what they want you to do. You can take these screws out. There's a couple screws that are down below. These are all, again, thumb screws, which is nice. But this is the radiator mount, and they want you to flip it over if you're using a radiator. So this, for a top-mounted radiator, they say to flip it over. Otherwise, you can have this facing the other way, I guess, is the theory. So I want it facing this way, so I'm going to do it that way. And then I'm going to look at putting the motherboard in next. I just wanted to show you guys that. That's one modification that I've had to do here as well. So I'm going to lay this thing flat. Okay. And when you're installing motherboards, I'm just getting this ready for you so you guys can follow along with me here. And if you want me to go to a specific view or camera angle, let me know that too. So this is talking about the different sizes. So you have these little screw holes that are available for these standoffs, and they're going to be in the standard places. NZXT has this kind of pivot standoff here, which works really well for moving a motherboard. A couple things I'll point out. Again, builder friendliness. We're not going to use this possibly. I'm going to try a vertical GPU mount here, but one of the things NZXT has is actual real knockouts. So hopefully they loosen up over time so you can thumb screw them, but they have real knockout plates. So when you're used to other cheaper cases that you knock out, you lose them, you never get them back, this one you can change your GPU layout and you don't have a big hole in your case. So that's kind of cool here. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Hey, welcome Ben, welcome Matt. Thank you guys for joining. And again, we're just putting in the motherboard now on the NZXT H710i. So that motherboard, what I like to do is line up those standoffs. There's that pivot one in the middle. Now, if I did this right, my I/O shield is going to line up perfectly with the back. Okay, that worked really well. I'm going to try to zoom in. I don't want to give you the seasickness here, but I want to zoom in a little bit if it's going to let me. That's about as close as it's going to let. So right here is what I'm talking about. There's this little tiny pivot that they use. And that, when I do motherboard installs, things are generally not milled perfect, especially on the cheaper boards. You get them. They're not working real well. So this one's just high enough quality that everything just tends to line up, which I like. So NZXT's got that going for it. But that pivot allows you the ability to move slightly your 3090. No, Matt, I don't have a 3090. I wish I could, man. I wish I could give away all these things, you know, but if this Amazon Live thing works out, I can do promo codes. I'm learning that they'll give me some promo codes I can give out during the live, which would be just awesome. I'd love to do that. I do occasionally give away products in other places, so, you know, we can talk about that. This is one other thing I wanted to show you real quick here. I'm just going through some of the parts here. So this is, if you did have a different kind of I/O block, you can use this one, but this follows the pretty much standard now motherboard I/O, and you can use that to plug into their header. But just again, more builder-friendly features. Tons of zip ties, because we always need tons of zip ties. But when you're paying for a premium case, you know, it never hurts to have, you know, really good zip ties and pieces. There's an extra standoff with a standoff screwdriver. Now, my standoffs are lining up, but if you had to go to like a mini ITX in this case, for whatever reason, if that was your deal, you can move the standoffs and they give you an extra one and they give you the tool as well. So very, very forward thinking with the NZXT company here. More cool stuff. This is the headphone splitter I was telling you about. I think my headphones actually come combined and they have a splitter to come back out. So I'm going to go just directly in. So that's going to be really cool. This is Daddy's gaming machine. So, but it's kind of funny. Actually, I do a lot of gaming now lately with my kids, which has been nice. Here's some different style. I just noticed here some fan screws that they're including. So if you are putting in fans, they use these coarser thread screws. So they got some of that as well. So really cool stuff. You know, they're definitely thinking ahead. So I'm looking for my screws here for the motherboard to hold it down. And I'm going to grab those. And we'll start from there. So I'm just grabbing that. Quick question for the chat. What is your source for a GPU? Where are you getting those right now? I would love to know. If you've gotten a GPU in the last 6 months, where did you get it? You know, inquiring minds want to know. So I'm definitely putting this in here. If you see me doing something wrong, shout it out in the chat, because I don't want to have to do this twice. Trust me. I am too old to do this twice. So it looks like everything's lining up the way I want it to. I could possibly put another motherboard standoff in here, but I'm actually, if things go well, I'm not even going to use the motherboard connector. I think we talked about that earlier. This does support vertical mount of a GPU. We're going to try that out. I have not done that before, you know, honestly, and this case supported it, so I got the parts to do it. So let's see what happens. This screw in the upper corner here, almost impossible to get once you get your radiators and everything else go in. So I'm going to do that one real quick. Got that going as well. So make sure that's tight. Doing well so far. Awesome. And is Wednesday a good time for you guys? I'm going to switch microphones here. I'm going to go over to the second mic. I've got a mic above the build station here. Let me know if that sounds better. I know when I talk into a... Oh, nice. I know when I talk into a case, it can kind of be muffled, so I just switched the second mic on here. Hopefully that sounds good for you guys. Let me know if it does or does not. Awesome here. There we go. And if you are chatting with me, just let you know, if you are on YouTube, feverishly typing away in the YouTube chat, I have to be on Amazon today. I'm doing an Amazon Live as well. That's why you see that scrolling at the top there. Definitely jump over on Amazon, hit my Amazon shop. I didn't have time to put all of these products in the carousel in a group, but I'll do that tonight. After we're all done here building this, if everything goes well, then I will put those products in, and we will you'll be able to get them all together. If you see something that interests you as well, you can do that live right now, as well as later. So CPU's in, we've got our IO, we've got all this, we've got what we're looking for. Next up, I usually do power supply down at the bottom. So I'm gonna zoom back out, take a breather. So this is the power supply that we're using. We talked about this before. This is the V850 from Cooler Master. And the cool thing about this from Cooler Master is the modularity. It not only is it 850 watts in the size of, what could I say that's the size of, like, a little bit bigger than a Coke can. It's an SFX, so it's a small form factor power supply. It's completely modular. So they fit all those connectors on there. It has an intelligent fan. I'm going to point that out to you guys. So this fan will not spin unless it needs to. So talk about a quiet design. I love quiet. So this fan here will not move, and they have a little warning label that you take off. It says, please don't send this back. It's not broken. But this fan will not move unless it needs it. And so everything's a little bit more tiny on this one, a little bit more modular. I'm going to grab the box for the power supply, because inside that box it had some more goodies. It has the instructions, it has more cables, which you need to talk about. So these are all those other cables that you may or may not use. In fact, it's got a power cable I won't use because I already got one. But what it did have, and I just grabbed out, was this IO plate. Now this is my first time using a SFX in an ITX build. So I've got this IO plate I'm going to show you guys here. So this IO plate here goes on the back and screws into the power supply to, I'm guessing, make it a full-size ITX power or ATX power supply form factor. And so we're going to run with that. I'm going to probably have to do some maneuvering here to make this work. I'm going to line this up here. I think I should check the instructions, make sure. I've only got burned a couple times, but this is a new thing here because I have not used these adapters before. And the Cooler Master doesn't say. At least it didn't say in that section of the manual. This is that sticker I was telling you about that says the fan will not run. The fan will not run unless it needs it. So don't send this back because it has a bad fan in it. I can't imagine how many RMAs they would have gotten on there. So I'm just lining this up for that plate, and it looks good. Let's see if that came with the screws I need, which it looks like it did. It came with both sets. So I'll apologize. I'm doing the work over here. I don't want to stretch my Skycam over too far, just because that cable and that stuff could fall out. But I am going to do a quick install of this power supply here into our adapter plate. And then we'll put our power supply down the back. So while we're waiting and while this is getting going, let's talk about power supply wattages. I know a lot of people buy enormous power supplies. Honestly, I've run all this stuff off of a 500 watt power supply. And if you put it in, Cooler Master's got a great power supply calculator. But if you put these in a power supply calculator, it's going to tell you don't need much more than 500 watts. That video card is going to tell you need like 1,000 watts. But power supply calculators are generally pretty good. I'm wondering what kind of power supplies are you guys running right now? So if you've got your AMD or your Intel chips, what kind of power are we looking at? Okay, so my adapter's in. I'm going to show you guys how that looks before I flip this case around and start looking at it. So this adapter plate just basically makes it that much bigger. You can see the size difference there. So it's about a 1/2 inch all the way around smaller. It's just going to be more airflow. So I'm excited about that. It looks like Yeah, that's how it's going to have to mount. So I'm going to not get you guys seasick. I'm going to move this connector around and our camera over while I do this. Like I said, this machine is all about the builder. So if you want builder-friendly features, the NZXT, I tell you, everywhere I look on this, look at this. It's got a removable power supply shroud. Looks like it could carry even a bigger power supply than what we've got going into it. But yeah, it's got this extra removable power supply shroud here. And I'm actually going to go back to a regular supply here. So I'm going to have two adapters on top of each other. My apologies to the adapter market there. I'm going to be overloading you. But yeah, very, very cool. I'm just checking the chat occasionally. If you are on one of those other services I should talk about real quick, if you're following me or you're on one of those other things seeing this play and you want to chat with me, I apologize. I can't chat on those other ones because I would go crazy trying to have a computer up and do all that. So if you are in one of those, jump over to Amazon. What's cool about it is once you're in Amazon and you hit that follow up at the top, I'm just going to give you that up there. You guys can see that. If you hit that shop up there and you hit that follow link that's at the top, every time I go live, your Amazon will notify you. I know some of these other services are questionable when it comes to notifications ever going through. So it's kind of cool that if you do want that notification that you'll actually get it. I've seen it work on Amazon. It's kind of cool. I started using Amazon Live here just around Prime Day. And so, you know, it's kind of cool to see a new service like this coming out. I'm going to show you guys how this is installing. So I'm going to have it here with all my cables, and it's removable. So the cool thing about that is once we get all of our cables routed, which I'm going to start doing as well, then we're going to be able to plug in this power supply. There we go. Now I do have some cool stuff here. I've got some cable extensions, which it looks like not necessarily going to be required, but it's definitely going to make it help fit a little bit better. So this top one right here is what I'm looking at. This cable for the CPU plus 4 whatever, not the longest thing in the world. So I'm interested in seeing what I can do to extend that, or see if there was a longer one that I can pick from. So I'm going to see about putting cable extensions on it. Just want to double check here to see these. So they're all labeled, which is cool. So this one has the CPU as well. Doesn't look like it's going to be much longer, but I just wanted to double check those. So again, this thing is designed for a small build. This is a full case, so that may be part of why the modular power supply. Just a word of warning there, if you are doing that. So I am going to use my cable extensions for this. So I didn't link these in, but I will link them tonight afterward. These are cable extensions with combs that allow. So there's a PCI Express one, PCI Express, and there's the CPU one right there that I was looking for. And it's the only reason I know is it's a 4x4 pin. So you know, these cable extensions will connect on to the end of that, and there's plenty of room for cables down there. So it's going to connect to the end of that, and then as I stick my cable through, instead of being, you know, a black cable in this case, it's going to be a white, nice folded cable. And they do actually include a bunch of cable combs so that you can make it look even better. So I'm going to take the end of this, which is the smart end here, the CPU side. I'm going to connect it to this side, so that's how the extension connects on. I can deal with the combs as well. There we go. Try to feed them through. That's just going to make my cables look that much cooler when they're combed out like this. So they're going to follow the line. So I'm just threading them here through in order. So they're going to all be in line when I get them in there. So they're going to have that cool radius bend. Hopefully you guys can see that here. It's going to have a nice little radius bend to it. And I'm going to have that cable like that. So I'm going to bring this over. Bring it back. I'm just trying to look at the way that I want this to line up. It's almost exactly 180 off. what I want. So bring that in, clip it down. Okay, give you guys a view of that on the inside so you can kind of see what just happened there. Switch over to the second camera. Okay, so you can see here, I've got my cable guide, my comb. Now, I could go back through and flip this cable comb over. I have it on the wrong side technically. But the beauty here is that it's going to give those cables some structure, and it's going to make it look nice and pretty as it rolls over. This is going to be more pronounced on the other ones. And coming back to the main screen, this is what NZXT, like I said, is famous for, is these cable management guides. So if I go here, I pull this through, I can wrap these cables, pull it through and pull it tight, and now I don't have a cable management nightmare going on in the back. More just like a bad dream. So hopefully you guys do your own cable management. I've just started to become more aware of my cabling. It's not been something I am super proud of, but it's something I'm working on. Do you guys use these cable combs at all? That's, like I said, a new thing for me. I don't generally build with these, but I haven't been doing a lot of these really cool looking or unique builds. They're, you know, more traditional. So we can look at that. Grab some of our connectors here. And motherboard power connector is already connected. I'm going to take that off. Now this one is kind of interesting. So the motherboard power is modular. It's two-piece when it comes in. So I'm going to need to go into this one with the single piece. This cable extension. And then this is going to be that white one that's going to come out and it's going to attach to the motherboard. So I'm just going to see which direction everything's lining up. Send you guys over here so you can see that. Like I was saying, what's cool about these cases is you can have your cables coming out and look just really sick, right? You know, coming through here. In this case, it's going to have to fold over this way. So if I want to do that, I want to put my comb on the top side. So I'm going to grab the large comb here. Okay, so again, it's just going to help me organize my cables. I'm going to start it on one side, work my way to the other. This is going to keep these things looking nice, in line. Just checking the chat there. See Matt and Ben, welcome you guys to the chat. And if you are, just a reminder, on one of the other services, or you just joined us, we're doing a Broke My Budget PC build. This one is not a budget machine by any stretch of the imagination. If you're coming here to save money on a computer, this is not the one to build. But it is going to be very fast. It's going to play Warzone very well. Hopefully we'll get to show you that here in a little bit as we go. And we're going to add this cable comb here. Just pushing these little cables through the comb so that we can line them up. And so what's cool about that, let me go back to this camera and show you. So again, what these cable combs do is it keeps your cables in line, right? So as I twist, I move, they all have that nice radius. And as I bend them especially, it's going to create that tension so that your cables just look sick when they're coming through here. So I'm going to get this to come through the back. I'm going to narrowly miss the cam controller. I'm going to see how high I need to go with this. I don't mind an arch look as long as it's pretty. And you see how that's kind of splitting? I don't like that look. I might have to play around with this, but we've got some other stuff coming through here. If I do it this way, does it look better? Yeah, but I'm going to need more cable comb. So I'll play with that later. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to connect that up so we can get going. I want to show you the benchmarks on this thing, but I'm going to put another cable comb in here, and we're just going to have it do just that much better. So you can see how these cables look these cables look, oh, so nice and organized. So that's one thing. That this cable guide is right in the way of my motherboard connector. But because I've got these cable extensions, I can hopefully reach out all the way to my power supply. Again, we're building as I build here. Let's see if I can actually drop it down to the side. Okay. Let's get that through. Again, NZXT H710. Huge amount of room to run cables, cable management. That's going to have to take some work there. But it definitely gets me down to where I need to be on the motherboard. Okay, so I got that. And we'll come back. Oh. Okay, let's see what else did we forget here. So we've got the power supply going in. We've got that. It's time to do the top-mounted radiator here. Now, like I said, I've done a couple things to get it started. Now, this is a 360 millimeter, and the hoses are up. There's a whole long debate about that. Some people, I think it was Gamers Nexus actually, that did cut open, tear down, whatever you want to call it, and they found that you can get some air bubbles in these. You know, most of these will have like a fill port here where they've filled them at the factory and sealed them. They do their very best to not lose any of the coolant that's in here. It's a closed cooling system. Really, really quiet. To get the amount of thermal, you know, usually to get the amount of thermal draw that you're going to get from this, you would have to use something much larger. Now, I may, looking at this thing, have to take this top radiator mount out first, and I think that this could actually be helpful. So, as I showed you guys a little bit ago, the mount here, which these little ones in the corner are hard to get to, flips over on the top if you're doing a very large radiator, and you can tuck it in. So what I can basically do is mount my radiator first inside the top here, tuck most of it away so you won't even see that I'm running this huge radiator. You're just going to see the fans. And I have the RGB pointing down because I want to be able to see the fans. But this is coming out now, and I'm going to mount that to the top of my 360 there. So you can see this thing takes the full length of it. I do like this. I like the fact that it's removable. And that's going to be really helpful. I'm just checking the box one more time real quick on this. This is the Enermax. Now, do have to say again, thank you to Enermax for sending this out. I said I was going to build a white PC build. I said I was going to use a really big CPU on this, and they said, no problem. We got something for that. We got it in white also, so they sent me this 360 out. And they've got some cooling compound. They've got some instructions which we're going to have to follow when it comes to attaching it. Here, I was also just looking for some screws. But it comes in this large box, and it's available on Amazon as well. I'm going to bring that up since we're on to this. I'm going to bring that up for you guys so you can see it as well. So the product we're looking at right now is the Enermax Liquimax 360 radiator. Now I'm just looking here on their screws to see if they include color match screws, which I don't think we necessarily need. There is a power inserter. If you don't have on your specific build, and you don't have a specific power header that you can utilize, it has that. It's got some splitters here I'm looking at. Just looking at the pack, and it doesn't look like it's going to have, it's got the screws that we need. I'm okay. I'm going to move that out of the way. We'll get back to that network later. Do a little bit of housekeeping over here, guys. I'm going to open these up. So this thing is including, and I'm going to bring it over to the other view so you can see it. So Enermax does include some coolant. Now, because I think I'm going to build this and I'm not going to replace it, and I want to give it the highest chance. Now, this is a lot of coolant, actually. Sorry, thermal paste, I should say. Conductivity grease. But because they're including this large amount, that's kind of cool. I'm going to use that on some other builds. But I'm actually going to cheat a little bit here on the paste. I'm going to go with the Cryonaut, the Thermal Grizzly. I'll bring that up here real quick for you guys. I did add that at the last minute. I thought, man, I'm not going to want to go in and out and take this out and do all that. So I did get the Cryonaut from Thermal Grizzly. And this stuff, it just hands down, it beats everybody. So if I'm going to do such an amazing job on this, I can do a little bit more. Squeak a little more cooling out of this thing by just improving the thermal conductivity. So this is a custom, obviously, thermal paste here from Cryonaut. It's going to have its information on the applicator that it has. Oh, it's going to have a little squeegee that you can squeegee out your thermal paste interesting idea. You know, again, each company does their own style, but that's the Thermal Grizzly right there, thermal paste. So I'm going to use the standard screws that came with the fan to mount it to the top of the radiator here. So I apologize, the camera's on the other side of this big build we're doing, but what I'm doing is I'm attaching it to the shroud on the top here. Now the NZXT has a removable top shroud here. So I'm going to do a few of these here to kind of just line things up, and then I can do the field. So this removable plate means I can drop everything in. Let's hope that I did this the right way. That I'll be able to drop everything in from the top, and I don't have to worry about all these cables getting in the way and not being able to reach around stuff, which this kind of excites me. So when I saw that I had to remove it and flip it over, it was kind of like, huh? But now that I've done it, it's like, oh, this makes perfect sense. They're making it really, again, much easier for you to install these massive radiators, which you can't twist and bend and get to from the bottom. So kudos to NZXT for thinking about us PC builders and putting this in a good orientation. So again, going along, doing a PC build here. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm John, the Net Guy. We are on Amazon Live, and I'm showing you how to build a broke my budget PC. If you haven't yet, there's a follow on desktop right here-ish. And on mobile, it's way down there. But if you have not yet followed, I would just totally appreciate that. That's awesome. It gives you a little ding, a little alert when I go online on Amazon Live. And it actually works, apparently, which is a step up from most of the other services. So what I'm going to do here, like I said, I was assembling that because I want to drop this cooler in through the top. Let me show you guys this two ways while I'm doing it. Kind of see what I'm doing here. Hopefully, I'll get you there lined up. Ignore my messy studio and OBS back there doing all the streaming. But this is where I can come through with this cooler. Awesome. Yeah, this again, builder friendly. I'm literally dropping the radiator in from the top. I'm going to run my cables through the back as I go. Assuming I don't have to take this out. But I have a feeling with the amount of connectors that I have here and the fact that I have not done any prep that I'm going to have to do this a couple times. But that's really cool. You know, that's a cool removable feature here. I'm just liberating a couple of these PWM headers. So again, with EnterMax, thank you guys for sending this out. Huge product sponsorship there. I don't have to go buy these, and it makes it a lot easier to do these builds if I don't have to buy everything. I did buy most of the parts here. So I'm going to run this through the back. And I have plugged in, just to test out the RGB, this fan, and it's cool. It looks really, really sharp. I can't wait to see the thermal performance of it now. Having done that, we'll see how it does. It does have these daisy chains. I'm going to show you here real quick. So on this EnterMax, it's got these daisy chains for the addressable RGB. So you connect one header, go to the next one, connect one header, go to the next one. All of this hopefully will plug into the NZXT, has usually an extra port on it, which I hope. And we can address it that way without having to go through the motherboard software. Even though the X570 does have, from ASRock, it has controller software, let's just put it, it's not as good. ASRock, the Polychrome Sync, none of the software is good. I had a Twitter conversation the other day with somebody here saying, why is that the last thing people code? It's like, oh, we're going to make this really cool, expensive product for everybody, and then we're going to have the junior programmer write the software for that controller, and those almost universally stink. So it was kind of a thing. That actually went together a whole lot better than I thought it was. I'm going to show you the SkyCam here so you can kind of see where the build went. And pretty cool. So this is a drop-in shield here, essentially, for the radiator mount. And you can put it in that way. There are 4 thumb screws that you put in to line it up and lock it in permanently. But, you know, this is going to draw that heat in, and I like the way that this is built. This is actually pretty sealed, so the heat's going to come out through the side panels. So kudos to NZXT for thinking ahead on this one. Made it a lot easier to install. Now, of course, I say that as I'm trying to put all this in. I'm only going to put a couple of these for now because just my luck, I'm going to have to readjust this or move it around. But that's the NZXT. I'm going to check the chat one more time here on Amazon. Sorry if you're on YouTube. I cannot watch the YouTube chat at the same time. It does not let me. There we go. And back in the app. So if you are chatting with me on there, take a trip over to the Amazon chat. I'm just looking over there to see our time. And you can ask me questions. We can talk about the parts that are being used in this build. We can talk about the cable management that we're going to have to do because we're starting to get the rat's nest effect going. But I'm really happy that we got the Enermax cooler in there. Thanks again to Enermax for bringing this cooler to the game. And one thing I want to show you guys, as you're starting to deal with these all-in-one radiators and heat pipe coolers, almost universally, the bottom of them has a remove this shield. Don't be that person. I have done it before. Wow, that's really well lapped. Yeah, so that's really, really smooth. So that's the cooler there. We want Enermax to show upright if we can help it. So I'm just trying to get my cables. Oh, look at that. Okay, let me back this up so you guys can see it. Whoa, that's going to be cool. So that's the way that those cables fit in for the 360. I'm going to need to refer to the instructions real quick because I have not installed this Enermax 360 before. What are you guys using for cooling? There's 4 of you guys watching right now on Amazon. If you're in the chat, let me know what you guys are using for cooling. Do you have a heat pipe cooler? Do you have an AIO? Who makes it? Bonus points if you have an Enermax. So thanks again to those guys. I'm going to get this stuff out of the way a little bit. We'll slide some of these things over just so we can get to getting. Now, the Enermax comes with the instruction manual, which we are going to use here. Depends on the CPU socket. We're an AMD socket, obviously, AM4 motherboard socket. So compatibility on this one, the 360, it's huge. This thing weighs 968 grams without the fans, if we have that. The fans and everything are the same throughout all these. They're 5-volt fans. I'm just looking to see if they have the bearings, ceramic bearings. Very nice. So very cool setup here. We got a parts list that's 2 pages long. I'll bump in so you can see it. The parts list is huge, but you know, I will save you going through and making sure we have all those. It looks like there's some AMD clips, and it's looking to me like it's going to use the factory backplate. Or is it a universal? Let's go take a look. So we got some clips on the side here, and let's see if I can. I don't know if I can show you these at the same time, but we've got those. There's the Intel instructions. Let's get over to the AMD installation. So install AMD clips. The clips go on the side of the pump. Okay. So we're going to need to check those AMD clips that go on the side of the pump here. And I may move this around so that we can see this better. I'm going to have to look at organizing a little bit here. So these are the 2 AMD clips. They go, again, on the sides of the pump here. Going to have to be oriented vertically, obviously. Looks like we're going to use some standoffs, and we are going to use the universal mount. So they, like others, include a universal mount. And the AMD is going to be the inside wing on that because it's more of a rectangle than the Intels. So that's what they're doing. And let's see. The AM4 is going to be the outside socket, it's telling me. Yeah, there's a few steps to installation on these. So a lot of times we can do these ahead of time. This is one where I'm going to have to take the time to do it. Let me get some of these out of our way just so we don't get misplaced here. Looking to see if you guys, again, what you're using yourselves to cool your machines. Are you guys using water-cooled radiator like this? Are you using the heat pipe air cooler like I've done before on some other builds here? I'll be interested to know that. So this is, looks like the AMD parts kit here. And I'm just looking to see if I'm following the right steps. Okay, I'm going to come back over. So I'm going to go to the side here on the side view, and we'll talk about installing. It looks like these go on the side. So it's down. Let's see what I'm doing here. So when Enter Max shows up, and that's going to be facing upward, we're going to have this here. And I want to use a screw. I'm just looking to see if they had tapered ones. I want to put this one in temporarily, and I'm going to look to see if I misplaced the tapered ones they had, because these look like they should be tapers. Oops. Maybe. And they look like they're fine thread. Give me one sec. I want to find if I can get these tapers here, because that would be a lot better. So let's go back over and see if they included some tapered ones, and I just skipped right over that. I don't see tapered screws in their selection kit. Those are the ones that are coming from that. Oh, here they are. They're at the bottom. Always helps to check fully. Here we go. And actually, that looks like a thermal pad. I'm not going to use that, but it looks like they have a thermal conductivity pad. So they're using tapered screws here, and they're using a smaller bit than I was using. So I'm going to come back over to this side for you guys, and we're going to install again. We're going to use these tapered mounts. And again, face them downward. And these ones they're kind of a wedge shape at the top. That's why I knew something wasn't right when I saw them. Okay. That one started. Let's see if this one will fit in. Okay. Taking quite a bit of pressure, so they're definitely going into something. Got it. That's that mount. Okay. And we're going to do that over here. 2 more tapered screws. This is something I should have probably done outside of the case. Just double checking we got the orientation right. I think we do. Okay, our last tapered screw here. So this is the EnerMax Liquimax 360 radiator. Sorry for the shaking here. Installing that guy real quick. Put pressure on these. It looks like they take quite a bit of pressure to sink down. They are tapered. I'm going to adjust this one. Yeah. I like how this one's screwed in. Let's see if this other one screws in any better. Same size, but let's check that. Okay. Got that as well. So that's ready. Go back over to our instructions. This again is a time-consuming part of this. I appreciate you guys for joining here. It's John, the Net Guy. We are doing a broke my budget PC build. And we're doing it live on Amazon. If you're watching on one of the other services, you're going, hey, I might be watching this on something else. If you are watching this on another service, the reason that you're watching it on another service right now is because we are multicasting. So definitely appreciate you watching. But if you want to talk to me, if you want to chat, which we're doing over here, jump over to Amazon. So they've got a a really cool thing going with Amazon Live. I'm just getting this set up. This is the backing plate here for AMD. It's going to go on the back of our super fast, uber cool machine build here. And I'm just looking here real quick on the instructions. And we're going to insert these screws in the back plate where we want them. Good. And it looks like they have some little retention clips. So the AMDs go on the outside, and then these retention clips go down to hold them temporarily. That's for the AM4 variety. So I was just asking on Amazon chat here if anybody wants to tell me what kind of cooling they use right now. Are you using a radiator or using one hopefully from NRX? What else do you got running on your PC? What are you doing for cooling? I would love to know. And we can talk about if I've used those before. I've used a bunch of different cooling ones from Cooler Master and others. I tend to like them all. I haven't found too many that weren't really well performing. Now there's this pad which they're asking you to put on the plate. Now they don't specifically call it out, but it is adhesive. And I'm going to put it down here because I don't want these pieces rubbing that CPU socket if it's not supposed to. So these have these little retention clips here. Put those in. I've got my AM4 alignment. So now that is supposedly how that goes through the motherboard there. So I have to look here again. On the inside, there's going to be some standoff spacers that they want you to put on. So I'm guessing these 4 standoff spacers that they have. Push those through and put these spacers on, which, as expected, helps to retain the backing plate. So here you go. You can see what I'm doing here. Just putting these spacers in, which did help on that first one to retain the backing plate in. Putting this guy in and this guy in. Okay. Now the next step is to remove the film, it says, from there, and then we're going to put the CPU on. So I'm going to have to put the CPU shmoo on the CPU, the thermal grizzly paste. So this is the thermal grizzly paste here that I was telling you guys about, the Cryonaut. This is the best of the best of the best stuff. And it actually has a little twist-on, handy-dandy applicator, and they say to paint it on. So I'm going to try my best at this. This is my first time using their applicator. Normally, I'm a push it in the center kind of guy and let it move around. I'm going to let a little bit of that thermal paste out here, and we're going to paint it on. So that's pretty thick. I'm going to paint it like I think it should be. I'm just giving it a little tiny amount, and then I'm spreading it with their spreader. And hold the applause. We're almost done. I'd like to get a little bit more on the top of the die here, the CPU. Okay. To paint upward. That's pretty well coated. Now that's the first time I've used the Cryonaut. It's supposed to be the best. But before we put everything down, I wanted to make sure that I had applied that. Now, the one that I've linked here on Amazon, and I'm going to bring that up here, just put it up on the feature so you guys can see it. So there it is. The one I've linked here is enough to do about 100 machines. Now, it's enough to do quite a few machines. Maybe not 100, I might be exaggerating, but it's enough to do quite a few machines. So, you know, definitely something you can invest in if you think PC building is going to be something that you're going to do more of, and you want to have a good supply of this stuff. Definitely think about that. This is the point where we're going to put down the cooler. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of help here, a little bit of room and some angle. Oftentimes, this is one of the hardest parts to do, especially by yourself, lining things up. So there, that lined up pretty well. I'm going to get a screw started, and I'm using their included screws. So they've got a spring and a nut. There we go. I'm going to get this guy going, and the reason is I need to have something to hold that tension off for me so that I can line the bottom ones up, because I felt that that wasn't quite lined up. And there we go. So these are a little bit cumbersome to get lined up, just like every other universal. And that's the one thing you kind of pay for. You're buying a universal kit, basically, and they're going to have some steps that you have to do for your specific CPU, GPU. This one's going on so far better than many. I am fighting it here just to keep the tension off. Okay, I got it lined up the right way. I'm not putting a lot of tension on this. I'm just working my way around. So, got that one started. And it lined up on the back. That was the other thing I'm checking real quick here, is that it's lining up on the back. So, going through here. I'm going to put the top one on as well. This one going in on the top. Okay. So that is installed. And now what I recommend, and if you guys have never watched me do a live stream build before, I recommend like you're changing a car tire. So tighten down one side, go diagonal, go closest side, right? And then go opposite side. And that generally spreads your CPU goo out properly. Now, you don't have to go super tight on these. They have springs for a reason. Just make sure they're snug. And you're not going to get much more by putting a bunch more weight. Now, what's cool about this case already, you can tell, it's a cool case. They've got the 360 rad in there. This is the water pump right here. So I can go up here and put the water pump header on right like so. So that's the one that I know is my CPU water pump header. Now again, I could do more here, and I think there's even a port here to do RGB on the cooler, but we'll see. I'm just kind of getting this tucked out of the way. We'll worry about airflow and other stuff as we get further along. So that is the CPU radiator cooler, the all-in-one radiator cooler install. That's done. So I'm going to start moving right along here. We want to get the GPU in next and a few other things. So let's go down to putting the power supply in real quick. I'm going to get that started. So the nice thing about modular power supplies, so this is the CM PSU. So that's the CPU side of the PSU. So I can take it, run it through the back here, and then on the modular power supply, I'm just going to run to the 8-pin CM PSU, PCIe CPU. There it is. Okay. So I can run that into one of those ports as well. Now, the motherboard one is a lot bigger, but we can do the same exact thing to it. It's going to have two sets of cables. And so I can do those. Sorry, it's kind of hidden back here. We'll get you some view of this here shortly that I'm doing. So I'm going to run those set of cables in as well. And what's cool about this is modular power supply, I'm only running the cables I need. I don't have a bunch of extra cables I don't need. Now these cables are a little shorter, but I've got cable extensions on them. And I believe they're shorter because this is an SFX, not a tongue twister. It's a small form factor power supply. So that's on purpose. I know I'm going to need a lot of power for my GPU, so I've got two more cable extensions for GPU. We'll put those in, and I need the GPU cables now. So this is the PCIe GPU cable, and PCIe CPU. So this power supply's got room for 3 more cables like this, 3 of the daisy chain cables. So that is a ton, metric ton of room. Okay. Let's check in there. Awesome. So we're on Amazon Live. This is the Net Guy. We're building the Broke My Budget PC build. About a $3,000 PC build. Don't tell my wife. But if you are just joining here, I would love it if you could follow me on Amazon. If you watch normally on YouTube or Facebook or one of the other services, hit that follow up there. Go to that URL, go to Amazon/shop/thenetguy, and follow me on there. I would love to do more PC builds just like this with you, and show you some tricks and some tips on here and how to do these. We can talk about some products. I'll tell you exactly how I feel about them. That's the one thing that I did like about this Amazon Live. I don't have to say that every product is perfect. I'm going to tell you what I think about it, and if it's a product that I wouldn't use, you're not going to see me showing it on here. So just a little caveat there. And if I am getting sponsored by somebody like this week, I have to say that Enermax provided that beautiful 360 millimeter all-in-one radiator system. I'll let you know about that. And thanks to them, because by sponsoring these smaller creators and smaller live shows, they're actually making it possible for more voices to be heard out there in the creating space. And I'm going to send this guy way out the back. I know my GPU is 13 inches long, so I'm going to send these cables way over here, and we'll deal with them as we go. So I just installed the power supply. There is one SATA power connector I need to find here. And that reason is, just looking here real quick, to power up my, there it is. Okay, I'm going to spin this around and show you guys so you guys can see what I'm dealing with here, because we're doing the cabling on this side. Okay, so there's one SATA power connector here for running the NZXT controller. So if you're going to use the NZXT cam controller, you do have to plug this one in. Now, we're not putting SATA drives in, we're not putting anything else like that, but I am going to use one cable, and only because I want to run that controller. So I'm going to plug it into our modular power supply back here. So I was talking about that modular power supply. Yep, so they're long and skinny. That's what I was getting confused there. They're only a 5-pin, long and skinny. And then I want to run this as deep as I can to connect. Okay. Perfect. So that's going to give power to my controller. Now, cool thing again about the back of this NZXT case, super awesome cable management. This is a patented cable management system. So, you know, that's coming from NZXT. It's a kind of a claim to fame here as their cable management. I know I want to connect this USB-C header to the motherboard. This is where we're going to get to that kind of connecting up the motherboard stage. And then once I get a GPU in here, we're going to see what that looks like. I'm just getting things out of the way because my connector for the USB-C is underneath the GPU socket. So I'm going to have to go this way. I'm going to give you guys the front view here, see what I'm doing. So I need to get this connector out up through here. And I'm not going to be able to use my standard GPU socket. So this is going to be an interesting test. Connect that to the motherboard for USB-C support. There we go. So that's the, I think it's 10 gigabit USB-C. So that's what I've run. And there's the little connector. Oh, that's the wrong camera. This is the camera you guys want. There's a little cover for the connector. So that's going up there now. I can run my USB Type-C, and then I can run my USB 3, which is right next to the power supply. So again, got all these cables coming through a tight area. Awesome. Thanks for you guys that are just showing up on Amazon Live. I really do appreciate it. This is the second Amazon Live I've been doing recently. I did one for that monitor you saw behind me on Prime Day, and what a beast that thing is. That is the Scepter, and it's in the carousel, product carousel here. That is the Scepter C40. It is an enormous monitor back there. But it's high refresh rate curved gaming monitor too, so very cool. Front panel I/O. Nice thing about this, again, is it's a block. So I'm going to slide this up in here. This is going to be HD audio, which I know is also down here. And then before I forget, this is USB 2, which is also down here. So I'm going to send all these guys up front through the bottom. We're going to deal with cable management later. I'm going to spin it around so you can see what I'm connecting here. I said anybody can build a PC. I didn't say anybody can build it fast. And this is an aggressive build to build live for you, but I wanted to do something cool for you guys that have helped me out, helped my channel and my system here. I'm going to do the HD audio connector, and it's going to go back here. Cool thing about these, even if you don't have the motherboard manual, almost all are labeled, and you almost can't screw it up. You can screw up some of these. So this is the front panel connector here. And NZXT, again, gives you a single front panel, and if you have a unique motherboard that maybe doesn't follow conventional standards, they actually have the adapter as well. Now, if you want to do this right, you have to connect the USB for the NZXT cam. That's how it communicates with the motherboard. And so we're going to do that as well here. So there we go. And so that's pretty clean cable management down there, but we can get better. We'll do better. I'm going to go down here to the back and the bottom. I'm just going to tighten in. This, again, has room for a larger power supply if we needed. Again, great machine, but it has an adapter. And then within that, we have an adapter because we're putting in a pretty small power supply in the grand scheme of things. From a size perspective, there's going to be a lot of extra room. You can see, my power supply is only a tiny, tiny little bit of this build. So I've got plenty of room left in here. Coming back over so you guys don't get seasick. I'm just checking it out. It looks like we're ready for vertical mounted GPU time. Now, this is the one thing I was a little bit worried about because I have heard some things about the weight of the GPU I'm using. I've heard of some things about power requirements through the bus and through the thermal take. Let's see. But I would love to see this thing post here in a little bit. We're going to have to connect up some headers, it looks like, some fan headers for sure. And so I'm going to see if I can get this GPU in on the bottom. And these, again, really cool things. Reusable knockouts. So if this doesn't go the way we want, we regroup. I have heard if you're going to try to if you're going to try to horizontally mount a regular GPU on this case, mine, a really long, oversized one, and you have the USB Type-C port right underneath it, you're going to get a conflict. So actually, from my understanding, ASRock will send you a 90-degree adapter if you call their support and just let them know, hey, I'm trying to build my machine and no fit. So that's one aspect of it. I'm just looking, again, for GPU fitment here. That looks like it'll fit, and it looks like it's going to look sick. So that's my GPU vertically mounted. Now, it is really close to that tempered glass. I'm hoping that it's not going to suck itself up to the tempered glass, but that's just something to think about when you're building this. Again, it's custom PC here. We're not going with instructions, so something you have to think about as you're building. I'm going to put in this PCI Express riser. So the purpose of this is basically to clone that port. That port that normally you would plug into is going to be cloned, and then this is going to be installed on the bottom. Now there's many, many different kinds of kits that you can get. There are some that will permanently mount in there. There's some that will cut the back of your case permanently and adjust. I'm going to try to spin this around so I can show you guys what I'm doing here. That's what I work on here, not just for me to get a machine, but for you guys to see what's going on as well. So, again, doing a vertical mount of a AMD 6800 XT with the thermal take PCI riser. This is a great graphics card, but what's actually kind of funny about it is it does have the ability to replace the fans. Like you take a little tiny screwdriver and you can replace the fans on here. Yeah, I was just making sure that that was crimped down properly because this is where I might run into trouble with fitment and height on my vertical GPU attempt here. Let's see if I can do this vertically. I'm going to have fitment issues. It's just right there. I'm going to have to take out these drives. Now, it's another cool thing with NZXT. This is a sliding drive mount, it looks like. But I could take those out, and then I can mount this GPU. Now, the weight is going to be resting on the bottom of that connector there, which is fully down. The only danger here is you can see it's kind of flexing out. Now, I may have to play with this because the glass is going to go right here. I don't want to choke this last fan. So I'm going to play with the insulation and put the screws in over here and see if we can't maybe tweak it by pulling the screws. And look if it will kind of tighten up as we go. So I'm installing the screws on the back side here to hold my GPU in. And I can't forget to put power to the GPU. I had, when I was a younger PC technician, right when the AGP cards, if you guys can remember those, were coming out, I had one of the ones that took an extra, and I don't even know if it was a SATA connector. I think it was probably one of the early add-on power connectors. Don't think it was PCI Express, but you know what? It did not click in the way I want. I'm going to take this back out. Sorry, guys. I need to get those feet to click in. I'll show you what I was talking about. I just noticed that because it had a lot more movement. So way down in there, I apologize if it can't pull up the lighting. So you can see the tabs on my graphics card. I want those feet to be inside the case. So there's a case, there's a mount that those feet snap into, just to give myself the most support. Again, I'm putting almost a 3 pound, I think it's a 2.5 pound graphics card. There we go. Do it right. Putting a 2.5 pound graphics card in here. So I want to make sure we do it right. But yeah, I actually burned up one of my first GPUs, and it said all over it. It had like mega instructions that said, if you don't have this power supply connector, don't turn it on. Turned it on, I heard it pop. I'm like, well, there's no GPU. Time to send it back. Didn't work. And sure enough, yeah, it didn't work after that. Yeah, so I'm going to turn this around in a second once I get this all the way down. I'm going to show you guys. Sorry for the shaky world here. I'm working on a tripod system. It's not quite there yet. Okay, that's sick looking. That vertical GPU in this case, when we're going to have all the RGB going. That's the other thing, is the NZXT also has RGB panels and stuff in here. So I'm going to pull these power connectors because we're going to need both of them. And I'm going to connect those up real quick on the back side here. Those are needed. Now I'm using the cable extensions, but I'm not combing them yet. You know, we're going to run out of time here. I want to get this thing to post and boot up for you, and just show you that what it looks like, if we can, with just the base RGB. So to do that, I'm going to have to, in the interest of time, not spend too much time on that. So I apologize for that. But I thank you guys for sticking in here and watching this. And like I said, this is the Net Guy. We're on Amazon Live. We're doing a PC build. This is not your budget PC. Let's put it that way. You know, it's top-end stuff. And this would be a great video editor's workstation when we're done. You know, you could use it for several other different purposes. Let me spin this around so you can get a good look at it. So that's what's starting to take shape. So now again, I'm going to have to take and reroute these, and I need to comb them and make them look really good, and we'll get to all that. But I want to make sure that this thing posts and it runs up. So we have our fans and our pump, and we're going to need to use the pigtails. So they came from our NZXT fan. There's one. Let's see. I want to make sure we get this right. There we are. Okay, so this pigtail adapter, it's like 3 adapters, is going to connect to the power supply headers for the CPU fan. So when I do this, they're PWM headers, and the nice thing about all of these, when they're all connected like this, you can connect them individually if you want to have individual control of your specific ones, but when they're all connected like this, you're going to get the same fan ramp, the same fan curves for all the fans. So they're going to adjust as you go. So I'm feeding this thing through here, and there's a connector for CPU fan right there, which I'm lining up to and pushing on. So there we go. So now these are going to be powered when I turn the machine on, because that's what we want. We have my pump plugged into the pump connector, so that's going to be powered when this turns on. I'm going to take a quick gander at the back side here and see if we can see all of these connectors that we've got here. We're going to do some cable management here in a bit, but I was telling you guys about these excess connectors. So we can use these connectors as is, and we can daisy chain them, right? So you can take these little connectors together, and it's just like LED strip lighting. If you've ever done anything with LED strip lighting at your home, So that one connects to that one, which covers those two, which connects to this one. You only connect one way, thank goodness. And then what I'm looking for is the last time I did this with an NZXT cam controller, they had an extra connector to run. So its cam controller is already running all the fans. It looks like. I just want to see if they have their connector for additional RGB. One second. Okay. See that coming out here, up there. I don't see that RGB connector. I see it coming over here, and I see it stopping. Oh, it's because it's used by the LED strip lighting. Dang. Well, tell you what we will do. I can plug this into the motherboard's RGB controller. When I find an extra slot, we'll let the motherboard deal with this mess. So I'm just looking real quick for the motherboard's RGB header. Right down in there. There's the chassis fan. There's a few more. Hopefully you guys can see in there. And I'm looking for the motherboard's addressable RGB. That's AMD fan. I believe that's down below. Okay. Well, round 7. There's a couple ways to handle this. One of them is this connector here. So let's assume my motherboard connector is way down in there. I don't want to dig it out, which I don't. I want to boot this thing up for you here in a few seconds. One of the things that you can do is you can take another SATA controller cable port you have, and you can find the end of your daisy chain here, which I'm pulling out. And what you can do is plug it into this controller. Now I'm going to switch over for you guys. This is from Enermax again. Comes with a built-in controller here. So assuming you don't have your own controller, which in this case, there's a couple ways to do it, but I don't have the time to go find those right now. So lesson learned, we'll do that on the next build. I think I have everything hooked up the right way. So I'm going to take a quick look at the chat here, and we're going to find out if anyone, Gen 3 or Gen 4 riser, you know what? I think it's a Gen 3. Now that's a question. Is that going to limit my performance? I've seen a lot of stuff. Thanks, Pinky, for asking about that. This is a Gen 3 riser. It's not in the carousel for the products, but from my understanding, unless you're way out at the very limits and very end, you're not going to be impacted by that. Cross my fingers. Let's hope that I'm not impacted by that. So it looks like we're ready. I always love this part because I always have to ask Pinky if I missed something. Did I miss something? Is there something that I didn't hook up? We've got our CPU fan. We got our water pump connected. That's an important thing. If you run this without the water pump connected, it's just a big hunk of metal sitting on there and a pump, and it's not even that much metal. So highly recommend if you're going to run AIOs that you make sure your water pump line is connected, which it is. We do have fans through the fan controller on the motherboard. We have the NZXT fans running off of that. We have all our other IO and everything's working. I think we're good to go. So we'll find out soon, Pinky. Oh yeah, here we go. I'm going to turn the power off there. And I'm going to grab a few other cables here. I'm going to plug my motherboard's network card in. And then I have a keyboard and mouse just in case we want to get through the post here. And, you know, it's always fun to do these builds. And if it doesn't fire off, we learn something, right? We learn about building, we'll diagnose it, and I'll catch you guys later and tell you what happened. But I have a good feeling about this. It could just be gas, though. You know what? I don't have, though, is a power button cover because I took it off. So, again, like I was telling you guys about, this is that removable top cover. Covers the fan. Now I'm going to have to take this back off and do more permanent wiring. But I'm just making sure we've got enough here. And we're going to hit the power button in 3, 2... Oh, gotta turn the power on back here. Whoa! We got it! Always like that, right? What's even better is if it actually posts. Let's see here. So this is the computer video output. Oh, shut off. It's a lot of times with the change in memory, that could be the memory controller. Trying to do the XMP profile. Let's see. I've gotten pretty lucky. I'm not going to say perfect. I've gotten pretty lucky with prior builds doing this. We're going to see. So just a couple things we should talk about. Oh, we've got post. We've got dots spinning in a circle. I love it, and we're just under 2 hours. Thank you guys again for sticking through this. This was a labor of love here. And don't look at my pin code. There we go. We're in. We're into Windows. That's a fast machine. Here we go. Love it, Pinky. Thanks for sticking around, man. Thanks everybody who's been watching here. Now I have to change a few things so I can see a little bit better here. But I wanted to go to Control-Shift-Escape. I want to show you this machine. This machine is a beast. So it's got 3600 megahertz RAM, 64 gigs of it. Let me zoom in so you can see that a little better. 64 gigs of RAM. But the thing that gets me excited even more than that is this CPU. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 threads. So when you're going to run Warzone or other stuff, it just rips along. We have 2 SSDs in here. Now, I'm going to use the app and I'm going to pull up what we're talking about as we go. So we have the SN850 Black. This thing is cool. So hopefully you can see that now. Overclocking next? No way, man. But no, I wish I could. But I want to show you something with Crystal Disk Mark, and I hope I have that ready to go. So this is my D drive, and this is my C drive over here. So my D drive is a Crucial. It's a Crucial P5, 500 gig. Now this is a fast drive. I'm clicking to run it. I'm only running one loop because I don't want to sit here forever. We're doing a live stream demo here, but hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to bring it into the center so you can see it better. 3,200 megabytes a second read. And the write speeds are dang near close the same way. So just pointing out that that's an excellent P5 is an excellent NVMe drive, but it is only a PCI, what is it, Gen 3? So I have my first experience here with a Gen 4. Now I could let these go here. I probably will just because I want you to see some of the write speeds. And then we can compare those write speeds. I'm also going to pull down in here while we have NZXT CAM. So this is the software. Gosh, this thing is fast. This is a fast machine. You just see it rips around. And I'm doing a write test on my D drive. So I'm hoping that none of what we're doing in here is impacting our speed test, but you never know. I'm just going to continue in guest mode. Confirm. PC monitoring. Okay, here we go. So this is the NZXT CAM software. You can see 2800 megahertz back there. So the CAM software just lowered the sound. This thing had kind of a drone to it. Let me just come back here real quick for you. Actually, going to come back to camera one. This thing kind of had a drone going on to it. It was like that CAM software kicked in and the fan speeds just dropped to nothing. So they're super quiet right now, which I love. And it's just showing that the CPU's got minimal loading. And then we can go over here. I'm going to go back so you can see it here to the lighting. So we can go in here. And so it's got a channel lighting. It's fixed, breathing, rainbow. So what does that look like? Let's go back to the outside. You're going to see it better from the front here. So there's my rainbow lighting effects in here. And again, RGB. I'm going to have to go back over here. You guys can see that on camera too. So my RAM defaults to rainbow mode. My upper one is in rainbow mode. My RGB strips are in rainbow mode. And there's 2 RGB strips. There's one behind that as well. So very cool PC build here. The back, not as pretty. I'm going to work on my cable management, but I'm just going to see if I can turn this a little now so you guys can see the full effect. That is cool. That is really cool looking. And the EnterMax is lit up as well. So it's got that going for it. I'm going to turn the lights down in the studio here. Alexa, turn off the studio. There you go. So hopefully you guys can see this. Switch back out to cam 1, and then maybe you guys can see the effect from the front here as well. I'm going to take it off of zoom. So that's the RGB that we've got going on here. Just really a good looking machine. Tons of RGB going on already. Alexa, turn on the studio. There come back our studio lights. You can see again. But all in all, very, very cool. I just wanted to show you guys that again so you can see what we're doing here. The machine's running, and so this is what it's running right now. That's the NZXT CAM software. And there was the performance of the non-PCIe Gen 4. But if I go in here and I go to the C drive, now, mind you, I'm running a bunch of launchers, installers, whatever you want to call them, the game launchers, all the bloatware that comes with every single game you get now. But let's go ahead and do this. And we're going to do this on the main hard drive now. And it's just shocking. It's just shocking. Fast RAM, fast CPU. There was 6,860 there. That's still not the best. This is a boot drive we're talking about. It's got other stuff reading and writing from it, but 6,800 megabytes per second. And that's very, very close. Oh, Pinky, that's funny. He said he was going to tell my smart assistant to send him a 6,800. No, that ain't gonna happen. But I just wanted to point that out there, that this is the new drive there that you're seeing. So this is the high speed, the NVMe Gen 4 drive, and this is the SN850 from Western Digital. And you know, when it comes to old spinning drives, most people complain that, you know, the platters died or whatever, and people have, you know, Seagate and Western Digital crushes and all that. These drives are really fast. Like I said, I've had the SN750 performed very well. That's what my budget allowed at the time. And this SN850 has done really well. There's 4 gigs a second write speed. That's insane. So I'm not going to let that one go all the way through, just because I want to show you guys real quick just the frame rates that you can expect in something like Warzone on this. And then we'll wrap up and, you know, call it a night. But I do appreciate you guys sticking in there and watching this. I'm going to switch back over to some of the other stuff that we're looking at. So speaking of RAM, that's what you're seeing up here in this rainbow color right next to the cable extensions there. That's the RGB RAM. Now, does RGB make your computer go faster? Only if it's a Honda with a racing stripe. Yeah, that's about what you can expect from a speed perspective. But no, just going to get the Call of Duty Warzone up here. It does not make your PC go faster, but sometimes it can actually be kind of nice to have, you know, and give a good look to your machine. You can color match it if you want. That's one of the things I really like and enjoy, is when a computer is all kind of matchy-matchy there. I'm going to bring up the game here, so we're going to pull up Warzone, and you're going to see how miserable I am at it. Actually, I'm not going to play multiplayer. I had been doing that, where I would jump into a multiplayer game, go in on playing solos or something, and then, let's see, your computer has changed. Would you like to optimally set itself? Let's not do that. The only reason I have not changed my GPU, I did add some RAM, but I don't want it to take forever and rebuild shaders or whatever it's going to do here. But the reason I don't anymore jump out of games, just because I don't want to be that guy, I'm going to go here. Hopefully you guys can see this, and hopefully you guys can hear it, and hopefully it's not too loud. If it's too loud, let me know. We will go through that. So it's loading up. No. I'm going to go to practice, and we're just going to do the plunder training because that's cool. So I'm running a RX6800. It's a decent card, right? It's not the best card, but it's by far not the worst card you could get in this build. And if you can get a card right now, whatever it is,
welcome to plunder training.
More power.
The team that collects the most cash wins.
You know, in here,
let's make sure that's your team.
Do my thing. Well, let's
open that
just see what it's looking like. Now, I've got ray tracing on, and I'm at 1080p.
Moving.
250 FPS. So this machine is fast. I'm going to show it while we're running here. So this is the cool software that comes with the RADEON cards. And so hopefully you can see that in the lower left corner. I know it's saying it's 249. I have a max frame rate cap on this thing of 250 FPS. So it's
Grab
gonna
that
hit
cash
that.
box, soldier.
Let's go into the settings.
Well done.
here
For
and
now,
just
that
make
cash
sure
is
that all my
yours.
stuff stayed the way it was.
Your
just
HUD
so
shows
I
how
can
much
do
cash you've got.
so
also
I go
shows
here,
how
my
much your
menus
team's
are set at
currently
60,
carrying.
obviously. Rendering is at 1080.
All right, let's move to
If
the next
you
area.
did have that monitor behind me, it is a WQHD. It's a 2K monitor, so 2560 by 1440. That's a great monitor to pair with this, just because it just works so well. So DirectX ray tracing is enabled on this one. So
Next area,
you
soldier.
have that running, and again, you're pushing 220, 250 at full HD. If you go to
Completing
WQHD,
contract also gives you
well into
cash.
160. So
Your contract
that monitor
acceptance
behind
skills
me
are
is a
remarkable.
165 hertz refresh
Activate your
rate.
TAC map, soldier.
It wants me to open my TAC map.
TAC
'cause we gotta
map
go
now
back
shows
to
the approximate position of your contract target.
But, you know, the
Nicely done.
monitor and this is a really good one.
Hunt down your target in the next
There's my
area.
bad back. Okay.
Nicely done.
So, just wanted to
That
show you guys
contract
that.
paid
This
you handsomely.
machine, the build went really well. I thought machine is very, very, very capable of doing that and more. Sam. Oh, can't hear me because of game. Sorry. My bad on the volume on the game. It didn't show me that here, but we'll come back to that later. But yeah, so I did not enable the memory. So there's some memory optimizations that we can do. Give me 1 second. One of my lights turned off when I turned the studio off and it didn't come back. So there's that. But yeah, so they did not include the SAM on there, but you can go through and enable that, and that's a memory bridge to the graphics card, which will make the graphics card just run even that much better. But we've just completed a full build, start to finish. I appreciate you guys sticking through this one. This is a little bit longer than normal because there's just a lot to go through. We got a 360 millimeter rad in here. We've got the NZXT cam software running. We have the crazy RGB from Enermax. Thank you guys over at Enermax for setting this up, sending me out that 360. It definitely made this possible. Definitely going to go through some cooling benchmarks. We'll do all that stuff when we have more time. And did want to remind you guys to follow me on Amazon. So if you haven't done this yet, if you're watching on one of these other channels, hit up my Amazon shop. It's amazon.com/shop/thenetguy. I'll have everything here that I just did in the shop so you can see it. It's going to have a recording of this live stream as well so that you can see that. As I mentioned, next week, not sure which one it is. Let me know. Again, that's what makes this all fun, is this is live. There's, I make mistakes. None of this is scripted. So far we posted and everything's working good, but I'm going to do next week. Either it's going to be the doorbell shootout between, Heimvision. This is the Heimvision video doorbell, the Anker Eufy, and the Amcrest. We can do that shootout. Tell me if you're interested in video doorbells. I also have a Ring, their $59 economical Ring one, as well as the week after or next week, depending on which order they go in. We have a Logitech Brio. We have the Avermedia and Epos Vox, one of my spirit animals on YouTube. He loves the Avermedia stuff, and this is their webcam live streamer. It's a budget one. Really good results out of it, but you got to know what you're doing. And then the Anker PowerConf C300. I'm not going to spoil it, but this one is not cheap. It's probably really close to the cost of a 4K Brio, and there's some things you should know about all these. So just want to say, if you have not followed me before, definitely follow me on Amazon. So when I go to do these product demos, and they'll be about an hour to 90 minutes, I'll go through each one, what I like about it. I'll pull my phone up. You guys are going to get to see, well, probably the office here, probably the studio. I'm not going to show you my front door. But that's something that I'll go through, and you'll get to see not only the results from the webcams, you're going to get to see the results from the video doorbells. I have a way to hook those video doorbells up in here, and we'll play around with them. So I do really appreciate you guys for sticking through this, everybody that's watching, guys that watch me on YouTube. Again, follow me on Amazon if you haven't already. This helps me and helps the channel grow. We can do more PC builds like this. And, follow me because I'll do some video follow-ups. We did that C40 monitor back there. That build went really, really well. And so I'd love to see you again in the future. But thanks for watching, you guys.